Um, I want to talk to you guys on something that God's been dealing with me. I almost forgot my notes. You think, oh, that's good. No, it would be terrible if I didn't have my notes. I would be all over the place, worse than I am now. So I want to talk to you guys about a few things that God's been dealing with me, and I want to start this a little bit different. I'm going to tell you this. My message is it's the same message that I was planning on doing, but I feel like God kind of instructed me to do it a little bit different. We're reading the book of Acts is what we're going to be talking about a lot, but through that, I think that you can't just, with the book of Acts, it talks about a lot about Paul's ministry, and then it's followed up by some letters that Paul wrote. And there is a big theme when I was reading this anyways, and a lot of times you think of Acts, you think of Pentecost, you think of the Holy Spirit, the move of the Holy Spirit, which is amazing, the move of the Spirit is what changes us, is what creates new creatures in us. I mean, there is power in that. So I'm not downgrading that at all. But as I was reading the book of Acts, I saw this theme of unity within the church, the first church. And a lot of times we're like, why don't we see a move of God the way that they did back in the book of Acts? Why don't we see moves of God like they did before? And it is like screaming, just coming off the page to me. It's because we are so divided. We get divided over everything. And even when it's like it gets it. Listen, the race thing has been going on. You think it's bad now? It was worse back in Jesus' day, okay? But now it's not just race. It's like they find new things to divide us about, or for us to be divided about. Like a virus. Like it's either everybody sit over here. All the ones that think vaccinations is good. Everybody that doesn't believe in vaccinations, or think that it's wrong, or think that if you get a vaccination, you're going to not be around in 3 years. Over here, we're going to separate the ones that think this way and separate the ones that think that way. And it is happening not just in the world. I would say it's happening even more in the church. And then we're sitting around going, why isn't God moving the way he should? Yeah. Or we're like, man, why am I so, why don't I ever feel refreshed? Why don't I ever feel why am I always so tired? And a big part of that, Pastor Mark and I talked about it in the podcast a few weeks ago, is the Sabbath and finding rest in Jesus. But I found something else here very interesting that Paul put that also refreshes us. And this is Paul. He's talking in Romans chapter 16. You don't have verses for this because this isn't part of my message. Do not start my timer yet. This is freebie time, bonus time. This is 16:32, and this is Paul talking. He says, then he will send me to you with great joy and the pleasure of God's will, and I will be spiritually refreshed by your fellowship. Well, I need rest. I need to be alone. I need to lock myself up in my house for a few days, and I just need to sleep. And then after those few days, you're like, why am I so tired? Because you don't have your priorities, right? Your mind's all messed up, because right here it says we are refreshed by fellowship. Wow. What we're doing right now should be refreshing us. But oftentimes we get together with people and then we find out what we disagree about, and then that becomes the main subject, and then it's now we got to try to prove our point. Happened to me just a few days ago. I'm very proud. I am a Fort Pierce boy. Now, with that, all right, I feel like at times I'm supposed to be the defender of Fort Pierce. If I was a superhero, I'd probably be Fort Pierce man, And when people start talking about our city, something just comes up within me. It really does reveal something that my heart, a part of my heart. But something comes up, and I feel like I got to defend our city. And you hear it not just within people that don't live here. You hear it from other fellow Fort Piercians. You hear about a drug overdose, it's like, yeah, that's Fort Pierce for you. It's like, yeah, because this is the only place with drug overdoses. Yeah, Fort Pierce. Oh, the bank got robbed only in Fort Pierce. I'm pretty sure they have movies where banks get robbed in other towns, And this happened not too long ago. Somebody started talking about Fort Pierce. I felt this rage come up within me, and I was like, man, I got to take a stand. I got to make sure they know Fort Pierce isn't that bad. And then something just spoke to me. Truthfully, I don't know. I can't tell you it was the Holy Spirit. I probably was, but I don't. But something within me said, Jimmy, before you take a stand, you got to take a seat. Meaning, before I stand up and I start debating with this person, start arguing with this person, I need to find out where they're coming from. So I said, all right. Jeez, I always got to do the right thing, God. And sometimes maybe you could have someone else do the right thing for once. Which, by the way, is why I have this chair up here, because instead of my stool, and I was able to smush this table down. It's not as easy as it looks. You got to like put your whole weight on it and go down, and especially with someone that's as skinny as me, I don't have, So, anyway, never. So I decided instead of taking a stand, I would take a seat, and I sat down and talked with this person, and I said, listen, Ann, you're ragging on Fort Pierce, and I'm from Fort Pierce. I'm not only from Fort Pierce. I was born at Fort Pierce. I grew up in Fort Pierce, but I currently live in Fort Pierce. So can you tell me what it is about Fort Pierce that you don't like? And he started to open up with me, and he attended Vero Beach High School, and he said back here there was a sports game that he was at, and he said that he was just out there minding his own business, just like everybody does. Oh yeah, I just mind my own business. And my own business, and he said that a car of guys jumped out from they're on the other side of Fort Pierce, they're from Fort Pierce, and they beat him up. And he said, was it you, Bobby? No. Bobby was like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that. That would have been hilarious. And I started talking, and it opened up. I sat there and spoke with this dude for an hour about this. And we even went into like forgiving people. And he's like, how am I going to forgive them? I don't even know where they're at. And I said, well, you can forgive them without actually saying it. And, we talked about that. And if I would have made that decision to take a stand, then it would have been shut off. We'd have gotten an argument. He'd have been like, I ain't ever talking to Jimmy again. Oh, he's a pastor? Pfft, yeah, right. I ain't going to go to that church. But I made a decision before I took a stand. And there are times to take a stand. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But I made that decision before I took a stand. I need to see where he's coming from, and I need to take a seat. And I want us as a church to try to not always just be ready to take a stand, but be willing to take a seat. Yeah. So in this message, I'm going to be talking about unity, and I wanted to do it a little different because here I started reading the book of Acts, and I read it kind of different than I have before in the past when I started reading this. And I know you guys are shocked. You're like, whoa, my pastor reads the Bible. And I had someone say one time, they were like, Mark had his old Bible that he's had since he's like in the first grade, and it was all like falling apart. And they're like, oh yeah, I know who to come to if I need anything from the Bible. And I'm like, well, my Bible is only like a few months old. Like, give me time. Like, I wanted to go and then like throw it in the washing machine or something just so it wore out. Like, I read the Bible too, Oh, yeah, okay, Jimmy. I want to start in Acts chapter 1. It's verse 1. Acts chapter 1, verse 1. It says, to Theophilus. Now, Theophilus, I was like, who is Theo? Who's that boy Theo? A lot of Bible scholars and theologians believe that Theophilus was not an actual person. Like we don't read like, oh yeah, Theophilus, he helped us build this house. Or you don't see that. You just see it in this letter that Luke writes in the book of Acts, and we also see it in the book of Luke. And what Theophilus, what it means, what it interprets is the lover of God. So a lot of theologians believe that Luke isn't actually writing this letter to our boy Theo, but he's writing it to us. So for the first time ever reading the book of Acts, I decided that I was going to change the scripture a little bit, all right? Now, don't get all mad at me and everything. We're just changing scriptures. I just did it for my benefit this one time, but I did, instead of saying to Theophilus, I said to Pastor Jimmy, the lover of God. And I'm telling you, the moment I did that, it kind of opened up to a whole new thing, because I'm reading this letter as Luke is writing it to me. A lot of people believe that they think that Paul wrote the book of Acts. No, a lot of Acts is about Paul, but Paul didn't write it. This is Luke, who Luke is writing on these accounts. And some of it, he's there for some of it. It says, so to Pastor Jimmy, the lover of God, I write to you again, my dear friend, to give you further details about the life of our Lord Jesus and all the things that he did and taught. So, I don't only want us to read this as a letter. I want to go a little bit farther, and I was kind of hesitant to do this because it's totally different than what I normally do. But I've always, part of this may be a little selfish, because I always wanted to be one of those people that interview others, like on 2020 or Dateline or something, you know. I think I would have definitely been I would have been like the next Regis, I'm pretty sure, if I would have got that opportunity. And but I chose Pastor Farallon instead. Yeah, I mean, I love you guys. But what I want to do is I want us to sit down and read this as we are interviewing Luke. He is right here with us. So you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit, but Luke is telling us the story. So what I would do is I would just announce to you guys, I'd say, Farallon family, here is Dr. Luke. And you guys would all give him a hand clap. There you go. You guys get it. You guys get it. You guys get it. Now, I feel like I got to kind of set this up a little bit and tell you guys a little bit about him. Luke, he's one of the early followers of Jesus. We don't know a whole lot about him, but we do know that he was a doctor. He's a physician. And he starts in the book of Acts. He starts where the book of Luke left off with writing these. He's an early convert of Paul. Paul was his teacher. He learned a lot from Paul. You actually can read his writings are very similar to Paul. And I think this is what happened. Paul, if you read the book of Acts and then you read his letters, this dude got beat up a lot, okay? He needed a physician. And I have a feeling that he was just like, what, you're a doctor? Well, let me tell you about Jesus, and we need a good physician on our team. So he immediately hooked up with Luke, and he accompanied Paul on some of his missionary journeys. And in fact, when Paul was at the end of his life, getting ready to be martyred, in 2 Timothy 4:11, Paul even writes, only Luke is with me. So this is one of the guys, this is one of the few that would stick with Paul no matter what, and we're gonna find out a little bit about that. And I just want to say this too. Paul is a very convincing dude, because there's this one situation in the book of Acts where there's this dude named Timothy, and he's like, hey man, I want to join the team. And Paul's like, okay, you can join the team, but you got to be circumcised. He's a grown man, and Timothy's like, all right, I'll do it. He's a pretty convincing guy, you know. I mean, Pastor Mark, how do you think that would be if we had that as a requirement on the resume, for getting staff members in? Okay, but you got to get circumcised. Be like, yeah, nah, I'm good. It's pretty convincing. All right. The good doctor, he comes out, he greets us. I mean, how often do you guys get a one-on-one exclusive with a doctor? Get a one-on-one exclusive with Dr. Luke. He comes out. I go to shake his hand, give him a half hug, because I'm not really sure how he feels about the whole COVID thing, so I don't give him a full hug, kind of maybe a side hug. He sits down. Man, we're so glad to have you here, Dr. Luke. I'm glad that you're here. And can you share a little bit about what's going on in the book of Acts? I love your work, by the way. And can you just share a little bit about what you saw back in the book of Acts? And he starts in Acts chapter 1, and he talks about Jesus appearing to the apostles. This is after Jesus has been resurrected, but before he was ascended. And he goes on and he says, Jesus visited those dudes all the time. All the time? How many? 5? Dude, 2 more than they can count. He was visiting with them all the time. He would just pop in, make himself a peanut butter jelly sandwich, hang out, turn on the television, watch a little Sports Center, Like he was just for 40 days. For those 40 days, he hung out with them a lot. Well, what all did he do? Why did he hang out with them? He said, well, he was teaching them biblical principles. He was telling them, he was giving them instructions. He was giving them instructions about the early church. It's like, Dr. Luke, do you happen to have those instructions on you? Because we could really apply those to Farallon. It's like, well, if you would stop talking, Jimmy, you would allow me to go into the instructions. Okay, I'm sorry. It's my first time doing this, Dr. Luke. And he starts sharing this, and he says, he gets out his keys. And he starts taking these keys off of his key ring, almost like I just purchased a house from this dude, and he's giving me the keys to the front door, this is the back door, this is the side door. He's taking these keys off, and he says, I'm going to give you keys to effective leadership and biblical principles within the church. It's like, let me have that, Dr. Luke, because we definitely need those at Farallon. Thank you very much. Then he says, well, this first key is found in Acts chapter 1, 13 and 14. Throw that up there. It says, arriving there, they went into a large second floor room to pray. Oh, Dr. Luke, I know that room. That's where they had the Last Supper, right? Yeah, that's right, Jimmy. Oh, yeah. And he goes, and those present, and he starts mentioning people's names that I know. He's like, Peter was there. John was there. Jacob was there. Andrew, we call him Drew. He was there. Philip, Tommy, Bartholomew. What? Bartholomew was there? Oh, dude, I know it was a party then with old Bart there. Yeah, it was. Matthew was there. Jacob, the son of Phileas, he was there. Simon, the Zealot. Judas was there. What Judas? I thought like he was dead. Not that Judas, Jimmy. Calm down. This is Judas, the son of Jacob. Oh, yeah, LJ. Yeah, nobody calls him that, Jimmy. My bad. I don't really know him. I was just trying to look important. Sorry, doctor. And it was a number of women, including Mary, Jesus' mother, and his brothers were there as well. All of them were united in prayer, gripped with one passion, interceding night and day. They were gripped with one passion. When's the last time that you got with, there was 120 believers here, 120 people get together. We have a hard time getting in our hearts lined up in one passion with our husband or our wife. But here is the church. We see them so united that they are gripped together in one passion, interceding night and day. And I believe that there's so much power. And he goes, that's the first key. There is power in community. And in community, of course, unity, which is in capital letters there, just so that you guys see it a little bit more and understand what I'm talking about. And the power in community and power in unity. I'm glad that you're enjoying this, Bobby. Everybody else is like, yeah, we're sleeping. And then he goes on and he says, yeah, in the next chapter 1, he says that they start looking for a replacement for Judas. Replacement for Judas, the dude that betrayed Jesus? Like, why do you want to replace him? Just move on, man. But then as I was reading this, it spoke to me and saying, listen, if you aren't willing to take up these keys, somebody else is willing to do it. The kingdom work's not going to get undone. He's got to find somebody to do it. So if Jimmy doesn't decide to take these keys, if Farallon Church doesn't decide to take these keys, if Angel don't decide to take these keys, if Thomas don't decide to take these keys, somebody else will. He says, yeah, so we're replacing Judas. And there was between these two guys, Joseph and Matthias, and we were trying to decide which one to pick, and we chose Matthias because his name sounds cooler. And then he goes on in Acts 2, he tells me about the famous story about the day of Pentecost and the empowerment of the Holy Spirit. And he says, yeah, they thought they were drunk. Like they thought they were like drinking gin and juice, you know. You lost me there, doctor. I don't even know what that is, really, you know. And he says, yeah, they thought they were drunk. And it was only 9 a.m., you know. But then Peter, he got up and he started speaking with so much authority. Now, I was like, well, Luke, from my time frame, like it was only 6 weeks from when Peter denied Jesus 3 times. There's only been 6 weeks between these parts. I mean, it hasn't been that long. He's like, yeah, that's what happens when the Holy Spirit falls on you. That's what happens when you receive that power. You speak with authority. You're not the same person that you were before. He says he spoke with so much authority, 3,000 people were added. So you think you could get Peter to come and speak at Fairlawn Church? Dude, that's not it, Jimmy. And then a little bit later, he spoke again, and then we were up to 5,000. You got like just this transcript of one of his sermons or something, you know? Like, I mean, I could use it. I would just maybe some highlights on that. No, you don't. Okay. And then he goes in Acts chapter 4, 32 and 35. He reads that. He says, all the believers were in one mind and heart. Selfishness was not a part of their community. Can you even imagine living in a community where selfish? It's like, oh man, you got a new car, Pee Wee? Dude, can I ride in it? Like, I'll wash it for you just to get a chance to touch it. You know, I'm so happy for you. Oh, what? You got man, Diane, you got a new pair of shoes? Man, those are not. I'm so happy that you got that. I know you're wanting those for a while. But instead, we're like, wait, well, she don't deserve that. He don't deserve. Why do all good things happen to them? But actually, the Bible says, Paul writes in Corinthians, he says, when something good happens to someone in the body, something good happens to everybody. And when something bad happens, when one person is weeping, we're supposed to be hurting with them. He goes on. He says, all the believers were in one mind and heart. Selfishness was not part of their community, for they shared everything they had with one another. And I'm like, even toothbrushes? No, not toothbrushes. The apostles gave powerful testimonies about the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great measures of grace rested upon them. I don't know about you, but I want great measures of grace to rest upon us. And then Acts 5:42. We have that one. No. I messed up with that one and gave John the wrong one before. I thought he fixed it, but he may not have. So, but I just say, church, this has to be us. This has to be where we're all together, one heart, one passion. No selfishness, a part of their community. That has to be the church. That has to be Fairlawn. You want to see things happen. You want to see God move. You want to listen. This is what. So I'm sorry, Dr. Luke. I just got to say something to these guys for real quick. Check this out. How many of you guys are parents? Yeah. All right. How many of you guys parent more than one kid? Yeah. I think there should be a word. Like, even if you have one kid, you're still a parent. But I think, like, once you have 2 kids, you should be, like, graduated to super parents. And I love being around my kids. One of my favorite things to do is take them and we'll go get breakfast. And I love it. I'm looking forward to it. But there are times that this happens. Your kids are perfect, but there's times when this happens. We get there. I'm so excited to spend time with my kids, but they do nothing but argue. Yeah. And now this thing that I was looking forward to since last night, I'm like, I just want to take them back home. Like, what am I doing at Hardee's? That's where we go, is Hardee's. It's got good biscuits and gravy. And, man, if I feel like that with my kids, how much does our Heavenly Father feel like that with us? He's like, I want to bless you guys. I want to do nice things for y'all. I want to take you guys out to Hardee's. But all you do is fight and argue. And here's the thing. I love this kid, and I love that kid. I get upset when someone's mean to this kid, and I get upset when someone's mean to this kid. When they're mean to each other, oh my gosh. It just tears me apart. And I'm thinking, if that happens to Jimmy, when the Heavenly Father looks down at us bickering and fighting and arguing about all these different things, he's just like, oh my gosh. Let me tell you this. My kids go and argue. If I could take them to breakfast this morning, and they do nothing but argue, you think I'm going to want to take them to breakfast tomorrow? Nope. Absolutely not. I go to Hardee's by myself. Sorry, Dr. Luke, I just had to say that. I had to get on to some people. You know, sometimes you got to just whip them into shape. You know what I'm saying? Then he goes on. He goes on to tell me about this crippled guy. He's crippled from birth, and he sat at this gate called Beautiful. And Peter and John walked up, and he was like, hey, guys, y'all got any cash? And they're like, no, we don't got any money, man, but we got something better. He's like, better than money? He's like, yeah, we got something better than money. He says, in the name of Jesus of Nazareth, you are healed. But he healed the guy. The guy was healed. He was no longer crippled. I was like, whoa, that is awesome. Everybody must have been super excited, Dr. Luke. No, actually, people got mad. What? Yeah, people got so mad. They went to Peter and John, and they're like, you guys got to stop spreading this propaganda. You got to stop telling the people about Jesus. You got to stop doing this stuff. And if you don't, we will kill you. It's like, oh my, that's big stuff. So what happened? You know what Peter said? What did Peter say, Dr. Luke? Peter said, it is impossible for us to stop. Yeah. It is impossible. I don't know about you if you've ever experienced it. When you receive that life-changing power, when Jesus does something to you and you are no longer that person, you got to tell everybody, and it don't matter how many people make fun of you and how many people tell you to stop. That passion burns within you, and you got to get it out. Yeah. And Peter's like, it's impossible. Might as well just go ahead and beat us because it's impossible for us to stop. Yeah. Then he goes on and he starts talking about this dude named Joseph. He said, man, he had this nice, beautiful land, and he sold it. He made a ton of money, man. He could have went and he could have bought a car like Pee-wee's. So what'd he do with it? You won't believe this, but he took all the money, every bit of it. He laid it at the apostles' feet, and he says, use this for the church. Use this for those that are in need. Use this to supply needs. I was like, man, that is amazing. That is awesome. He's like, yeah, man, they changed his name. They started calling him a Barnabas, which means encourager. He's like, oh, dude, I know that Barnabas guy. He's the one that was like, hey, going around traveling with Paul. He's like, yeah, that's the dude. He's like, oh, man, that's great. And then he gets to Acts chapter 5, and he starts telling this story about this married couple. And their name is Ananias and Sapphira, and he says they saw how Barnabas, how they celebrated him and how he was being blessed by doing this. And they said, oh, man, we got some land too. And this is what he does. It's found in Acts chapter 5. I'm going to read that real quick. I think we got it thrown up there, but I'm going to read it out of the Bible so I can go a little faster than the screen does. But he starts telling me this story, and he says, they sold their land. They made up this deal. They said, hey, man, we are going to sell our land, but we need some of that money. We could use some of that money. You saw that car Pee-wee was driving? Well, I want one of those. He says, listen, baby, relax. We're going to sell it. We're going to give them a part of the money. We're going to tell them that it's all the money, and then we're going to hide some away. They don't worry. You'll be driving a car. You'll be sporting just like Pee-wee is, you know. It's like, all right, plan. So that's what they did. And they sold it, and then they just took part of the money. They took it to the apostles and said, this is all the money. And he's like, all right, guys, look at us. We did what Barnabas does. Start changing our names. And then this is what it says in Acts chapter 5, verse 3. It says, God revealed their secret to Peter. So he said to him, Ananias, why did you let Satan fill your heart? There's some powerful words there. You let Satan fill your heart and make you think you could lie to the Holy Spirit. You only pretended to give it all, yet you hid back part of the proceeds from the sale of your property to keep for yourself. Before you sold it, wasn't it yours to sell or keep? We didn't tell you got to sell it. And after you sold it, wasn't it your money entirely of your disposal? We didn't say you had to give it to the church. How could you plot such a thing in your heart? You haven't lied to people. You've lied to God. This is the moment Ananias heard those words. He fell over dead. Everyone was terrified. I would say so. And when they heard what had happened, some young men came in and removed the body and buried them. 3 hours later, I don't know what, his wife comes in. I'm just going to put this out there. Baby, if you were missing for 3 hours, I'd come look for you. You wouldn't have been 3 hours. Yeah, it would have been like after 30 minutes. I was like, I need my baby. Just saying. Trying to make up for that other thing earlier, you know what I'm saying? Trying to make up for that. 3 hours later, his wife came into the room. He had no clue what had happened to her husband. Peter said to her, tell me, were the two of you paid this amount for the sale of your land? Sapphira says, yes, that's how much it was. Peter told her, why have you agreed together? Here we see this, they're agreeing together. So, right? It works the other way around, too. We're agreed together to test the Spirit of the Lord. I hear the footsteps of those who buried your husband at the door, and they're coming here to bury you too. And at that moment, she dropped dead at Peter's feet. Well, Dr. Luke, I need a minute. I'm not saying the interview is over. This story's kind of messed me up. I don't really understand this story. Can we just take a little break? We'll cut to commercial, and I'm just going to go get like a Twinkie cake and just think about this a little bit. All right, guys. Listen, guys, this story, when I was reading this story messes me up. Pastor Mark spoke on this story not too long ago, and it brought I didn't even remember this story until he spoke on it, and it did something within me. I was like, this doesn't even make sense. Because I like getting up here and speaking about love and God's forgiveness and how he loves us regardless of what we've been through and regardless of our past and even regardless of our present and our future. And he died for our past, present, and future sins. And I like to say all that stuff. And here we got, and then I'm starting to think like, well, who killed these two people? Was it Peter? Did he have the power to kill them? Was it God? Did they have heart attacks? Did God just let go of his protection on them? Like, were they Christians? Were they not Christians? I had all these questions. Listen, because it messed me up for a while. I closed my Bible, and I was like, God, I can't go any farther until you show me why this happened. I even wrote it in my Bible. I think we got a picture of it. I wrote it, right? We got that? I wrote this. This is my actual Bible. I wrote that in here, and I said, Jesus, allow the Holy Spirit to give me insight to reveal the truth of this story. So I was like, I just can't go on. And I sat down and I read it again. I probably read that story 50 times just trying to figure this thing out. And then I felt like the Holy Spirit revealed something to me and said, you're focused on the wrong thing. I'm like, what do you mean? You're so focused on their death and why they died, and you're missing it. You're missing the point of this. You're missing what I'm trying to show you with this. It says, and he started showing me some other stories within the Bible of where the leaders of the church fought so hard to protect the unity within their congregation and within the body. And I'll tell you right now, that convicted me. Because I do not like conflict. The last thing I wanted to do is sit anybody down and correct somebody. But what I'm doing is I'm taking away from you guys. I want to be the funny guy. I want to let Pastor Mark do the correcting. I want him to be the bad guy. I'll be the one that consoles you after he made you cry. I'll be like, yeah, he's made me cry too so many times. I get it. Not my house. It was the other way around. My mama, she made me cry plenty of times. But it spoke so much volume to me. Me researching that you have to protect us. Our job within the church, we have an obligation to protect that unity. And I sit back down with Dr. Luke, and he takes the second key off and says, Jimmy, I'm glad that you came back. I didn't know if you were going to come back, but I'm going to give you the second key, because the second key is you have to be willing to protect the unity within the body. There's a story where Paul was walking around. He was going and he was witnessing to people, and there's this sorcerer. His name was Elymas, I think that. And every time Paul would start to speak, he would cut him off, and because he didn't want people to hear it. Then Paul got fed up with it, and he said, "You know what, dude? You want to have blind." And he spoke the same type of authority to that guy as Paul spoke when he was speaking to people that were healed. Why? Because he was like, you were causing division. And then I thought about this. And this was my prayer to God. I said, God, I never want to be where the biggest asset I can be to the church is to be dead. I never want the church to gain because of my funeral. I say, Lord, please help me never to be one that causes division, and when I see it, I hit it head on. I know that means people are going to be mad at me. I know that means people are going to get upset. I know that means at a moment people are not going to like me. I thought Pastor Jimmy was a good dude. Nope. But as a leader, And I believe that God's called all of us to be leaders. But as a leader and as the body, we have to protect the unity within the church if we want to see God do amazing things. So key number 2, we must protect unity. After this, he said, Dr. Luke, it's winding down. The time's it's getting late. We still got communion. And Pastor Mark, he just always, he yells at me when I go over on my time. He gets really mad. You probably want to leave right after service because you don't want to meet this guy. Yeah. And just kidding. But I said, is there any final words? Is there anything that you want to finish up? And Chantel, you can come on up. And Dr. Luke said, yeah, actually there is, because there's a couple more keys that I want to share with you. But he goes on to start telling this story in Acts chapter 28. And it's verse 1 through 12. See, Paul, at this time, Paul was a prisoner. He was telling his story. He's telling about his buddy Paul. And Paul, he was treated pretty good as a prisoner, actually. And he was actually going off to be martyred. He was headed to Rome to meet with the emperor. And they said, you know what? You can take one of your buddies with you. Paul's like, oh, that's so nice of you. I'm going off to get killed, so I'll take one of my buddies. Hey, Luke. Hey, man, hey, we're going to go on a trip. You can go with me? Yeah, it's a boat trip. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. Listen, in this, you'll see where Luke refers to this as we went. So Luke was there. Luke was traveling with Paul. Luke was not a prisoner, but Paul was a prisoner. So this guy, that's a good friend. If one of you guys, y'all get put in prison, I'll write you letters. I'll come see you if they let you. But if you say, hey, man, I need you to make this trip with me over to Georgia or New York, I'd be like, no, dude, I'm out. This is Luke is like, yeah, all right, I'll go with you. It's a good friend. They're on this ship headed to Rome, and, well, there's a shipwreck. The boat breaks. Their plans change. And in this, Paul is one of the prisoners, and you see how even here, the Bible talks about how many people there were. I believe it's 276. I could be wrong on that, but it was somewhere around that of men. And there was this one time where a group of them went and tried to lower the boat, and they were going to escape. And Paul said, listen, if any of us, if we do not stick together, we are all going to die. So we all need to stick together. That's how important unity was. And then we find Paul, he was looking out for the others, because there was another part of it when they saw land in the distance. They said, you know what, it's going to be hard to keep track of these prisoners, so let's start killing the prisoners. That's what one of the soldiers' ideas was. And Paul's like, no, you can't do that. We got to stick together. And they're like, Paul, we weren't talking about you. We were still going to let you live. He's like, no, you cannot do it. We all got to stick together to survive. The Bible says the boat sunk, and said those that could swim swam. Those that couldn't swim, they hung on to pieces of wood, and they floated. One part where Paul's telling a story in 2 Corinthians, he said that about a shipwreck. This is Paul's 4th shipwreck that he's been on. I would stay off of ships. I think there's somewhere in this when Paul's describing all the things he's been through. I think he was in a plane crash one time and he got deleted off of social media, something like that. I don't know really where that's at, but I think that's in there somewhere. But there's one where it says, Paul said that he hung on to a piece of wood for, I think it was 3 or 4 days. And we pick up in Acts chapter 28, 1 through 11. Dr. Luke is telling this story. He says, once everyone was accounted for, and we realized that we had all made it. We all made it. We learned that we were on this island of Malta. The natives went out of their way to be friendly to us. The day was rainy and cold, and we were already soaked to the bone. But they built a huge bonfire and gathered us around it. Paul pitched in and helped. He had gathered a bundle of sticks, and this spoke to me. He says, that's another key. He took another key off the key ring. He goes, that's another key to, no matter what season that you are in, you got to be willing to pick up sticks. In other words, it doesn't matter what your title is. It can be pastor, it can be president, it can be janitor, it could be custodian, it could be teacher, it could what? You got to be willing to pick up sticks. You got to be willing to serve. And by the way, there may be some sticks that you got to pick up that you thought you were done with and over with, and you didn't think you would ever have to pick them up again. You thought those sticks were behind you, and then you realize, oh, I haven't dealt with those sticks. You may have to go back and pick those sticks up, or you may have to go help somebody else with those sticks. We must be always willing to pick up sticks. It says he had gathered a bundle of sticks, but when he put it on the fire, a venomous snake, roused from its sleepiness by the heat, struck his hand and held on. Now listen, I do not like snakes. Someone asked me one time, what is your favorite kind of snake? And I said, it's the snake that I can't see, because it's not around me. Like, it's not even a dead snake. I've ran from dead snakes. Listen, guys, I'll be totally honest. I've ran from water hoses before. Like, that's just a water hose. Okay. I mean, that's happened recently. So seeing the snake hanging on from Paul's hand like that, the natives jumped to the conclusion that he was a murderer, getting what he deserved. By the way, there's always going to be people that try to put you down. There's always going to be people that talk about you. There's always going to be people that spread things about you. How do you react when you're falsely accused? Paul shook the snake off into the fire like it was nothing. They kept expecting him to drop dead. But when it was obvious he wasn't, they jumped to the conclusion that he was a god. They first thought he was a murderer. Now, oh, you're a god. Changes really quick, right? The head man in that part of the island was Publius. He took us into his home as his guest, and drying us out and putting us up in a fine style for 3 days, for the next 3 days. Publius' father was sick at the time, down with a high fever, dysentery. Is that right? And then it says, listen to this. It says, Paul went to the old man's room. He didn't say, I'll bring him out here. He didn't say, you know what, I'll just pray for him right here. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty serious thing. We must be willing to meet people where they're at. We must be willing to go where they're at. We must be willing to go into their room, into their mess. That's what he's called us to do, by the way. You thought it was just to sit here on Sunday? No. So Paul went to his room and he says, and prayed, and the man was healed. By the way, you want to pick up some friends, start healing some people. A lot of people want to become your friend then. Good plan, Paul. Word of the healing got around fast, and soon everyone on the island who was sick came and got healed. Everybody that was sick on the island came and got healed. And then this next sentence that Luke says, I'm not going to read the whole verse, but Luke, good doctor, who's on this island, doesn't even need to be there. He could be like, I can't believe I gave up being a doctor for this. I can't believe I agreed to come with this. This is crazy. I don't even know these people. I didn't even know Malta existed. But you know what he says after telling this? We spent a wonderful 3 months in Malta. But Dr. Luke, a wonderful 3 months in Malta? All right, was there jet skis there? No jet skis. Was there like a Chick-fil-A? No Chick-fil-A. What, was there at least a tropical smoothie? No. Did you build sandcastles? No sandcastles. We had a wonderful 3 months in Malta. Their plans were disrupted. The boat broke. They didn't even know Malta existed. Now they're here making connections with people they did not even know existed. And their plans have been disrupted, and they're making connections. I don't know about you, but usually when my plans are disrupted, I don't make connections. I start complaining. Man, I didn't sign up for this. And then what happens a lot of times is we want to make sure that nothing else breaks, so we just quit it all. Well, that didn't work out. I don't want to go through other things not working out. I quit. I give up. I didn't sign up for this. And we miss what God's trying to do. sometimes we just think God just, like our plans trump everything, don't we? Am I the only one that ever thought, well, this is God's plan, but then I found out, now that was just Jimmy's plan. God had much better plans. This is key number 4. You realize that God chooses people over plans. Why? Because that's his plan. People. People. You know, I used to think, like, I've caught myself saying this even recently. The most important part of this service on Sundays is praise and worship. I'm not even saying it's preaching. It's praise and worship. And then I've heard pastors say the most important thing is the message. Say we're both wrong. You know what the most important thing is going on right now? People. Because if we ever lose track, if we ever miss it and forget that why we're doing this and that it's for people so that they can receive what we receive. Yeah, we're worshiping Jesus. We're giving him praise. But if it's not reaching people, why are we doing this? I'll give you one more example. Listen, you can tell me, and you guys do, and I love you guys too, but people say, oh man, Pastor Jimmy, I love you. I just love you so much. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad you and Pastor Mark are pastors. And it does. It feels good. But I'll tell you this. If you did that, I'm like, whoa, man. Yeah, Diane really likes me. Woo, Denise, man, I think she really lifted me up. And then I walk around the corner, and I see them too, and they are talking bad about my kids. I will forget everything they said. And it's on. But then we expect God, like we start talking about his children, his others. Sometimes we forget we're not the only kids. We're not the only children. We start talking about them, and we're like, well, I don't know why it's not just working out. I don't know why everything's not happening, you know? Must be so-and-so. It must be Bob's fault. You know what else I see Paul didn't do? I'm looking for Paul to like start a revival. Like I could have helped Paul so much if I was there. Like we could have came up. We could have just went right into a sermon. All right, guys, you saw I just got bit by that viper. That viper's a metaphor for sin, and you see how I shook it off, like the prophetess Taylor Swift says. I just shook it off. And when we shake things off and we receive Jesus, then our lives will change. But he didn't do that. In fact, there is no record whatsoever about Paul teaching or preaching on Malta. But you know what he did? You know what there is record of? Paul loving people. Paul making connections. Paul caring for other people's loved ones. Paul picking up sticks. He was so focused on unity, nothing was going to stop it, even a viper, which at times looks like a water hose. And then at the end, Luke's telling the story. He said, we had a wonderful 3 months in Malta. Listen, guys, God, he has a plan. His plan is for us to reach people on islands that we didn't even know about. And sometimes when that happens, well, our plans get disrupted. So we can connect with people. Why? Because God's plans are people. I'm going to close with this. Pastor Mark, you can get ready to come up. This is Romans chapter 14, verse 19. The last verse. I'm going to walk off the stage after I say this. I mean, sometimes I do things that I don't want to do, and I just keep talking. So I can't, no promises. It says, Romans 14:19. It says, so then make it, and he's writing this to the church of Rome. He's telling them, he's giving them some directions. He says, make this your top priority. It's a big deal. Top priority. It's not making sure your message has enough jokes in it, or make sure that you have these songs in the worship service. Make sure you got greeters out there. Make sure there's somebody in the sound booth. Make sure you're live streaming it. He didn't say any of that. He says, So then make it your top priority to live a life of peace with harmony in your relationships, eagerly seeking to strengthen and encourage one another. That's supposed to be our top priority. Pastor Mark?